What makes a person truly dangerous? Is it the body count they leave behind? Or is it the power of an idea so corrupt it can twist the world into a nightmare? This isn't just a list of history's most prolific killers. This is a countdown of the men whose ambition, ideology, and cruelty created empires of suffering, leaving scars on the world that have never quite healed. We're going beyond the battlefield to uncover the architects of genocide and the leaders whose policies condemned millions to misery. These are the men who didn't just take part in history, they brutalized it, forging a legacy in blood and tears. Their stories are a chilling reminder of what happens when absolute power lands in the hands of those with absolutely no humanity. Number 10. Andrew Jackson. Kicking off our list is a figure who might seem out of place among genocidal dictators, but whose legacy reveals a different, more calculated kind of danger. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, is often remembered as a populist hero, a champion of the common man. But for tens of thousands of Native Americans, he was the architect of their destruction. Jackson's danger wasn't one of chaotic violence, but of cold official policy. His goal was to expand the United States for white settlers, and he saw the sovereign Native American nations of the Southeast as an obstacle. Despite a Supreme Court ruling that recognized the Cherokee Nation's rights, Jackson defied it. He drove the passage of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, a law that gave the government the power to forcibly remove around 60,000 people from the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole nations from their ancestral lands. The result was the infamous Trail of Tears. It was a series of forced marches, sometimes over 1,000 miles, under the most brutal conditions. Over 17,000 Cherokee people were driven from their homes, and an estimated 4,000 of them died, from disease, starvation, and exposure along the way. Across all the tribes forced into these removals, the total death toll is estimated to be around 15,000 people. It was a state-sponsored ethnic cleansing, justified by a belief in manifest destiny. Jackson's actions cemented a pattern of dispossession and violence, leaving a deep wound on the American continent. He's a terrifying example of how one man can be hailed as a hero by one group while orchestrating the ruin of another. Number 9. Luis Garavito. From the danger of state policy, we now descend into the abyss of purely personal evil. Luis Garavito, known as La Bestia, or the Beast, wasn't a dictator or a conqueror. He didn't command armies or follow a grand ideology. His danger was intimate, predatory, and on a scale that's almost impossible to comprehend. Garavito is one of the most prolific serial killers in recorded history. Operating in Colombia during the chaos of the 1990s, he exploited the nation's poverty. He would disguise himself as a monk, a beggar, or a charity worker to lure poor and homeless children away with small offers of money or candy. What happened next was a ritual of unspeakable torture, rape, and murder. For years, he was a ghost moving from town to town, leaving a trail of small bodies that nobody seemed to notice. When he was finally captured in 1999, he confessed to killing 193 boys, though investigators believe the real number could be over 300. The search for his victims led to mass graves scattered across the country. His case is horrifying, not just because of the numbers, but because of what it represents: a complete failure of society to protect its most vulnerable. Luis Garavito is on this list as a unique kind of monster, the one who walks among us, a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always carry a banner. Sometimes it just offers a child a piece of candy. Number 8. Vlad III Dracula. History knows him as Vlad the Impaler, a name that's enough to send a shiver down the spine. The 15th century Prince of Wallachia has become more legend than man, even inspiring literature's most famous vampire. But the reality of his rule was far more terrifying than any work of fiction. Vlad's brand of danger was psychological warfare, which he perfected through acts of extreme sadism. His favourite method of execution was, of course, impalement, a slow, agonizing death. But it wasn't just the act itself, it was the sheer spectacle. According to legend, after one battle, he created a Forest of the Impaled, a horrifying display of captured Ottoman soldiers on stakes. While contemporary accounts claim there were 20,000 bodies, modern historians believe the number was likely exaggerated for shock value, though still horrifyingly large. The sight was reportedly so ghastly that the invading sultan, a hardened conqueror himself, turned his army around in horror. Vlad didn't just reserve this cruelty for his enemies. Other stories, which may be folklore, claim he used it to enforce his brutal sense of order at home, once allegedly burning the sick and poor of his land alive at a feast, claiming he was solving poverty. While some in his native Romania see him as a brutal but effective national hero, his global legacy is one of weaponized terror. Vlad the Impaler proved that one man's depravity could halt armies and forge a legend of pure horror. Number 7. Pablo Escobar. Our next entry brings us into the modern era, showing how danger can evolve. Pablo Escobar wasn't a head of state, but for a time he was more powerful than the state itself. As the leader of the Medellin cartel, Escobar built a criminal empire that flooded the world with cocaine and held the nation of Colombia in a death grip. By the mid-1980s, Escobar was one of the richest men on earth, controlling the vast majority of cocaine entering the United States. His danger wasn't just in the drugs he sold, it was in the method he used to protect his empire. Narco-terrorism. When the Colombian government tried to extradite him, Escobar declared all-out war. His motto was simple: plata o plomo, silver or lead. You either took his bribe or you took his bullet. He waged this war with shocking brutality. Car bombs destroyed city streets. In 1989, trying to kill a single political informant, he had a bomb placed on Avianca Flight 203, killing all 107 people on board and another 3 on the ground. He put bounties on police officers, leading to the murder of hundreds. Between 1989 and 1993, his war against the state is estimated to have claimed over 5,000 lives, including politicians, judges, journalists, and countless innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. For years, Medellin was the murder capital of the world. Escobar showed that a man with enough money and a total lack of morals can become a power unto himself, proving a single criminal's ambition can be as devastating as a king's. Number 6. Pol Pot. Not all danger comes from greed or a lust for power. Sometimes the most catastrophic destruction is born from an idea, and few ideas have ever been as deadly as the one that drove Saloth Sar, better known as Pol Pot. As the leader of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, Pol Pot wanted to create a perfect, classless, agrarian society. The price of his vision was the near-total destruction of his own country. When the Khmer Rouge took power in 1975, they declared Year Zero. Everything that existed before, culture, family, education, tradition, was to be erased. The cities were emptied, and their entire. Populations were marched into the countryside to become slave laborers on collective farms. Intellectuals, doctors, teachers, and even people who just wore glasses were targeted for execution, seen as symbols of a corrupt, westernized past. What followed was the Cambodian genocide. From 1975 to 1979, an estimated 1.5 to 2 million people were killed, nearly a quarter of Cambodia's entire population. They died from execution, starvation, disease, and forced labor in the infamous killing fields. Prisons like Tuol Sleng became torture centers where thousands were brutalized before being sent to their deaths. Pol Pot represents the danger of the ideologue, the man so convinced of his own righteousness that he's willing to sacrifice millions of real human lives for an imagined paradise. He turned his country into a vast concentration camp, and his pursuit of utopia created only a hell on earth. Number 5. King Leopold II of Belgium. At first glance, King Leopold II seems like just another respectable 19th century European monarch. But behind this veneer of civilization was a secret, personal empire built on unimaginable suffering. While other European powers were colonizing Africa, Leopold acquired a personal territory 76 times the size of Belgium, which he cynically named the Congo Free State. He claimed his motives were humanitarian, but the reality was a venture of pure, ruthless greed. The Congo Free State wasn't a Belgian colony. It was Leopold's private property. His only goal was to extract as much wealth as possible, mainly from rubber and ivory. To do this, he created a system of brutal forced labor. Congolese men were given impossibly high rubber quotas, and failure to meet them was punished with death. To ensure his mercenary army wasn't wasting bullets, soldiers were ordered to bring back the severed hand of a victim for every bullet fired. This horrific policy led to a reign of terror where mutilation became routine, villages were burned, and families were held hostage to ensure the men would work. Over Leopold's rule, the population of the Congo was decimated. Reliable figures are hard to establish, but historians estimate the death toll from murder, starvation, and disease was somewhere between 1.5 and 10 million people. Leopold himself never once set foot in the Congo. He was an absentee landlord of a slaughterhouse, a man who became one of the richest in the world by orchestrating a hidden genocide. His story is a chilling example of colonial exploitation at its absolute worst, proving that some of history's greatest atrocities were committed not for fanaticism, but for profit. Number 4. Genghis Khan. We now travel back to the 13th century, to a man whose ambition was so vast it redrew the map of the known world. Genghis Khan, founder of the Mongol Empire, is a figure of stark contradictions. He was a brilliant military strategist and a unifier of warring tribes, but he was also a conqueror whose path to power was paved with the skulls of his enemies. The sheer scale of destruction unleashed by his campaigns makes him one of the most lethal leaders in history. Forging his empire from the steppes of Central Asia, Genghis Khan's armies were disciplined, innovative, and utterly ruthless. They used psychological terror as a primary weapon. Cities that surrendered without a fight were often spared, but those that resisted faced total annihilation. Entire populations were massacred and their cities burned to the ground, a warning to anyone who dared defy the Khan. The numbers are staggering. High-end estimates suggest the Mongol conquests were responsible for the deaths of as many as 40 million people. At the time, this may have accounted for over 10% of the entire world's population. Some historians argue for a more conservative range of 20 to 40 million, but either way, the devastation was apocalyptic. Some regions never recovered. The population of the Iranian plateau, for instance, was so decimated that it may have dropped by as much as 90%. Genghis Khan wasn't just a king, he was a force of nature, a hurricane of conquest that swept across continents, leaving behind a unified empire built upon the bones of millions. Number 3. Mao Zedong. Number 3 on our list is a man revered by many in his own country as its founding father, yet he's responsible for the deaths of more of his own people than any other figure in history. Mao Zedong, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, was the architect of social experiments so grand and catastrophically misguided that they caused death on an unimaginable scale. His first few years in power saw the killing of millions of landlords and perceived counter-revolutionaries. But that was just a prelude. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, a fanatical campaign to transform China from a farming society into an industrial powerhouse overnight. Farmers were forced into communes and sound agricultural practices were replaced by bogus policies from the party. The result was the single deadliest famine in human history. From 1958 to 1962, while the state exported food to the world, an estimated 30 to 45 million of his own people starved to death. Then, in 1966, fearing his power was slipping, Mao unleashed the Cultural Revolution. He called on the nation's youth to purge society of impure elements, sparking a decade of chaos and violence. Schools closed, ancient treasures were destroyed, and millions more were persecuted, humiliated, or killed. In total, the policies and purges under Mao's rule are estimated to have caused between 40 and 80 million deaths. His danger was his unshakable belief in his own revolutionary vision, a vision for which he willingly sacrificed a generation of his own people. Number 2. Joseph Stalin. There are tyrants, and then there is Joseph Stalin, a man whose name has become a synonym for paranoia, terror, and the cold bureaucratic machinery of mass murder. As the absolute dictator of the Soviet Union for nearly 30 years, Stalin twisted the communist dream into a totalitarian nightmare, responsible for the deaths of an estimated 20 to 60 million people through famines, purges, and his infamous Gulag system. After rising to power, Stalin began a ruthless campaign of forced collectivization, seizing land from peasants for state-run farms. In Ukraine, this policy led to the Holodomor, the death by hunger. From 1932 to 1933, this man-made famine killed an estimated 3.9 million Ukrainians, as the state used starvation as a political weapon to crush their identity and desire for independence. Then came the Great Purge. In a fit of paranoia, Stalin set out to eliminate any and all perceived enemies. Old allies, military leaders, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens were arrested, put through show trials, and executed or sent to the Gulag. The Gulag was a vast network of brutal forced labor camps where over 1 million people perished from overwork, starvation, and disease. Stalin was the ultimate puppet master of misery, a man who saw enemies everywhere and whose only solution was death. He built an industrial superpower on the bones of his own citizens, perfecting a system where the state itself was the ultimate instrument of terror. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. At the number 1 spot is the man who represents the absolute nexus of destructive ideology, total war, and industrialized genocide, Adolf Hitler. More than any other figure, he embodies the idea of a man whose cruelty reshaped the world for the worse, leaving a scar so deep it has come to define our modern understanding of evil. As the Führer of Nazi Germany, Hitler's ideology of racial supremacy drove his atrocities. He believed in a superior Aryan race and saw Jewish people as a subhuman threat that needed to be exterminated. This belief wasn't just talk, it became state policy. The Holocaust was the systematic state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews. Men, women, and children were hunted across Europe and murdered in mass shootings or in killing centers like Auschwitz, where death was industrialized with poison gas and crematoria. Millions of others, including Roma, Slavs, political opponents, and people with disabilities, were also murdered by the regime. But Hitler's danger didn't stop there. His insatiable ambition for living space for the German people led him to invade Poland in 1939, igniting World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history. The war he started ultimately resulted in the deaths of 70 to 85 million people worldwide. Hitler combined a twisted genocidal ideology with the full power of a modern industrial state and weaponized it against the entire world. He is the ultimate example of a dangerous man, a figure whose hateful ideas and lust for power culminated in the greatest catastrophe the world has ever known. Conclusion. From the cold policies of a president to the industrial-scale slaughter of a Führer, the men on this list represent the darkest potential of human ambition. They were architects of hell on earth, leaders whose greed, ideology, and paranoia condemned tens of millions to an early grave and fractured the course of history. Their stories are a chilling testament to the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. As we look back at these figures, we're forced to consider the circumstances that allowed them to rise and how we can ensure that humanity never again allows such individuals to hold the fate of millions in their hands. Perhaps you believe someone else deserved a spot on this list. Let us know in the comments below.